I'm extremely ecstatic to have Jonathan Brown, but as you glorious Aussies know him, Browny, here, the AFL legend now. Talking about head game like a positive mindset, having that psychological resilience. You've certainly needed it throughout your career. But take me back to when you were young, because your father was an AFL footy legend as well, wasn't he? What was it like psychologically growing up, knowing that your father was this AFL legend, and did you feel the pressure from a young age, or did you just want to be like your dad?
I think I more wanted to be just like Dad. And I was fortunate for that upbringing because I think it does give you a leg up. I grew up in footy clubs and locker rooms, and I'm sure you would have obviously played plenty of sport and been in locker rooms over the journey, especially as a younger fella. So it teaches you the laws of the jungle, doesn't it, when it comes to team sport, and teaches you some great values, not only for sport, but just for life. So I just wanted to be like Dad. He was my hero, still is my hero, and I suppose he taught me how to go about things and really helped me with not only my football skills, but between the ears in how you approach your football career and take it all on board. So I guess I had the self-help guide. I had the book there to sort of guide my way through, and grew up in the country areas of Colac and Warrnambool, and back in an era when footy was tough, a little bit dirty behind the scenes, because this year's the 40th anniversary of a 1985 grand final. So one of my earliest memories as a kid was Dad captain coaching the 1985 Colac Premiership team against South Warrnambool, and it was legendary and known as the bloodbath in those parts down there. And so I saw some pretty brutal stuff on a footy field as a young fella, and I thought, geez, when you play footy, you've got to be tough and you've got to be resilient. So probably fortunate enough I was able to carry that through, or certainly felt as if that's what you needed to be able to play. Leave the dirty stuff aside and try and keep your eyes on the ball. But from that point on, I stood on the premiership dais when Dad accepted the cup as the premiership winning coach, and then he handed me the cup and I held it up to the cheers of the crowd. And back in those days, in those country football leagues, they're still huge, but there might have been 10,000 people there. So as a kid, it looked like 200,000 people when you looked out and you held that cup up, and I thought, geez, that's what I want to do. That's my dream. I think I was 3 years old at the time, Ant. So forever that was just ingrained in my mind, entrenched in my memory.
Yeah, and it's sort of like a community affair, isn't it? It's a community affair. It becomes a state affair. It becomes, so much bigger than you think it is, especially back in those days where, the accessibility to TV, to these sport, you came and saw your team play, didn't you?
Absolutely. And it's what binds communities together, especially out in the country. And Dad lives in a small country town of Koroit now, about 1,500 people. They won 7 premierships in a row just recently, and the whole town just revolves around the footy club. It's the community, everyone knows each other. So I love that upbringing, and it was really important, obviously, to help me get to the top level. And, so just great memories. I remember that 1985 premiership. It was in Warrnambool, so it was about an hour and a half drive home, and obviously Mum took myself and my younger brother home, and when we got home, there was already, in the local paper, Colac's probably had about 10,000 people. They already had a cartoon drawing in the late edition of the local paper, and the neighbour had actually stuck it on our front door as you walked in. So there's the cartoon that was in the paper, the late edition, with my dad standing up there holding the Premiership Cup up. And I thought, geez, how could he not be your hero and you not want to follow in his footsteps, Ant?
Yeah, that's amazing. I can only imagine this, especially as a youngster, looking up to your father. Your father's there, and he's sort of the disciplinarian of the family, but he's someone that you look towards, that you look up to, that you want to be like, and you do anything to please your father, right? At such a young age. And I can imagine at 3 years, I can't even remember back to. I haven't even got a memory of when I was 3 years old. So that must have been a great memory for you, Browny. But have you got any other memories of the locker room antics from a young age where it shocked you? You were in the locker room and you were just like, well, obviously don't get too many people in trouble. But was there any moments like that you had on the dais that you went into the locker room that shocked you more?
Well, they did used to lock me in the lockers when I was a kid. Those Colac blokes, they were wild boys, and they taught me how to swear. I was very good. Once Dad took away all my toys, and he said, "Look, that's it. We're sick of you saying the F word." I was about 3, about the same stage. Start saying dim sim instead of the F word. And anyway, that lasted about a day before I dropped back into the F word again. And then you wouldn't believe, so I see Dad driving away in the truck because he was out running the farm for my grandfather. So he had the truck. He loaded all the toys up, including my footy and my bike, my 2 prized possessions. He drove away. I went straight in and called Nan, and I was in tears. Nan said, "What happened, Jono?" Dad took me fucking trucks away, Nan. So,
Ingrained in you.
Ingrained in me forever.
You, yeah, from the age of 3.
So I don't know how I've survived this long in the media without dropping the F-bomb in life. During our radio days, doing breakfast radio on Nova here in Melbourne, we had to hit the dump button a couple of times. But so the boys taught me how to swear, and they locked me in locker rooms. No question about that. There was plenty of that going on. But the one thing that stood up, and it goes back to that swear, the Colac Football Club had the greatest theme song. So, as we know, I'm not sure, does it happen where you grew up, Ant, that after the big win, the footy team, they sing the song? They all come in and they sing the song. I'm not sure if that happens in league or union or soccer circles.
Yeah, it does.
And their song was, they were the Tigers. So this is how their song went. There's a team on the track dressed in yellow and the black. We are the mighty Tiger team. It takes a great team to stop us, a better team to whop us, and Mortlake. No, it's true, because that was one of the teams I play against. If Terang ever beat us, that's another team, we'll all come fighting back. We're fighting for the colours, the yellow and the black. Up the Pies, up the Blues, up the fucking Fairies too. There's a team called Port Fairy. We are the mighty Tiger team. So imagine what all us kids were doing, mate, when the boys would win the game. We are standing on the table, saving our lungs up for that last bit about the Port Fairy Football Club.
And
so
I suppose
it was
as
a legendary
youngster
theme
as
song.
well, as a youngster, that effing word is coming out. It's like, fucking. It's like, I love it, mate. I love it. And yeah, it just goes, it goes to show that, we are a product of our environment growing up and how important that circle is and that influence. Kids growing up, you don't listen to adults. You learn from what you see. When the adults talk to you, it goes in one ear and out the other, but you really learn from what you see. And it sounds like that you had a really action-packed upbringing, but it wasn't just footy, was it? I hear that you're a keen cricket player, and you got is it left arm bowler?
Left arm fast bowler. That's
mate,
right.
Come on, tell us more about that.
I just wanted to be Wasm Akram. Now that's funny. That's an odd reference, being a Pakistani fast bowler, but as a left armer growing up, Wasm Akram was the best bowler in the world, and he could talk to the ball. And so I tried to emulate everything he did, including the half-taped-up tennis ball in the backyard and trying to swing it like Wasm Akram. So, and my goal, probably more than actually lacing up and playing an AFL game, lacing a football boot up, was to actually open the bowling for Australia on the Boxing Day Test match against England, the old arch enemy. So that was probably my first dream as a kid growing up, and unfortunately never got to do that. I've been to plenty of Boxing Days, sitting in the outer having a few cans, but that was my first ever dream. I loved it, and I was a bit aggressive. I probably played cricket like I played football, Ant. I was always trying to knock the batsman's head off, coming in off the long run, steaming in, charging in, like the great Victorians of past, like Merv Hughes and those sort of fast bowlers. But yeah, I love playing cricket.
So what one did you enjoy the most, honestly? And obviously, I know that your father maybe have pushed you down the AFL route because obviously that's what you're surrounded by. But it sounds like that you really enjoyed cricket there, because when I was talking to you, your face lit up then.
Absolutely.
When was the crossroads when you had to decide what you wanted to do, or were you just better at footy and you just went down that?
I sort of thought it's funny how it works out, like, because and the first time Dad actually made a comeback in cricket, because he'd played cricket before his footy days, and so he actually decided to make a comeback. He was the club cricket coach, and I was playing seniors at that stage. I was about 15 or 16 playing seniors. So Dad made a comeback, and the first time we were involved in a dismissal together, it was caught Brown, bowled Brown. And then, so I was bowling, the batsman hit the ball, and Dad took the catch in the outfield, which is a great memory. How good's that?
But
good. Then the problem is we opened the batting together, and he ran me out, Ant. He bloody ran me out. So I was a bit disappointed about that. But, yeah, how did it cross over? Well, when I went to Brisbane to start training for football, because in the AFL there's a thing called the father-son rule. And if your dad played for a particular team, well, you can go straight to that team without having to go through the draft, essentially. And because Fitzroy, who Dad played with, moved to Brisbane, relocated to Brisbane, the Brisbane Lions took over the rights of all the Fitzroy sons. So they invited me to come at the great Lee Matthews, who was our premiership coach, would eventually become our premiership coach. He invited me up to do pre-season training, and I was very wet behind the ears. I just presumed that I was going to Queensland and moving up from country Victoria. I'd go up to Queensland, I'd do the football training because it's during the summer months. I'd do the football training, then I'd go off and play cricket on the weekend. And when I got up there, I said, oh yeah, so what cricket club am I allowed to play for? And they said, nah, there'll be no cricket. You're not allowed to play cricket. So,
were you devastated? Were you like,
I was devastated.
Oh, mate.
So that was the end of my cricket dream. So from that point on, and I've never really been able to, I've played some one-off games here and there, and I've never really been able to play for whatever reason since. But yeah, so that was pretty much where the dream ended. As a 17-year-old, I was in the state cricket squad. So then it was really full investment into AFL forever. Apart from the night I actually went on the footy show, this famous footy show here in Australia. Rugby League had a version, AFL had a version. I was a panellist while I was still playing. And it was one of my fondest memories, my time in the media, was when I turned up to work that night. I do about 6 episodes a year. I had to come to town early, came in on the Thursday night, and I walked in and the boys said, Ricky Ponting, the current Australian cricket captain, is coming on the show. Would you like to bowl a ball to him in the car park during the show? And I thought,
of course I fucking would.
Of course I fucking would. I thought, here's my chance, Ann. Here's my chance. My cricket career is still alive. So I got to bowl to him in the car park. I got to bowl 2 or 3 balls to him, and that was a real highlight. I had some help from the lighting boys because I had a fully white taped up tennis ball. I had a bright white light on just behind the bowler's arm as I ran in, and the boys just turned it on just as I was about to let go of the ball. So punter couldn't see it. I bowled a bouncer and I actually hit him on the shoulder. So people still come up to me in the street saying, geez, what about that night you put one past Ricky Ponting, you actually hit him? You must have been bloody fast. Little did they know I had a bit of help from the lighting boys. But that was a memory I look back on.
And the aggression, mate. I'm sure the aggression was. I'm sure he wanted to bowl his head off, really.
Well, I remember Ricky saying as we're walking out from the studio to the car park, he goes, mate, just look after you. Just nice half volley. I said, yeah, no problems at all. I thought, no chance. I'm not bowling a half volley. I'm going to try and take his head off.
Brilliant, mate.
No, he's
Brilliant.
a good sport about it. So great memories of cricket, though, and it's a big part culturally in Australia, isn't it? And obviously it is in your country, but everyone loves cricket here in Australia.
So as the Australian cricket dream ended, one started, mate, and what a phenomenal one it was. Just take me back to that moment when you got to the club. They were like, listen, you are now fully embedded, fully focused. It's AFL, 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 live, dream, eat, sleep, shit, whatever it may be. Was that a pleasant sort of distraction, taking you away from other sports and letting you know that you are in this now, this is your career?
Yeah, it was your dream, and I felt very fortunate. But yeah, when you're young, I think it takes a while to develop that professionalism, Ant. And even though you come into a professional system, you're not necessarily professional at that stage, especially back then in the game.
How old were you, Browny?
I was 18. I just turned 18 years old. Yeah. You know, I'd moved from a small country town to Brisbane. That was like moving to Las Vegas. You know, the bright lights of Brisbane back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And shit, we had some fun. We used to run about town and have a lot of fun. So it probably took me a while to develop that professionally, because it wasn't until I got through that first 12 months. I played 12 games out of, 20, however many games I play now in the AFL, 23 games in a season. Played about 12 games. I was in and out of the senior team, dropped between seniors and the reserves. And I went home and I thought, a mate actually said to me, and this is why mentors are so important, especially for young males, to have that strong male influence over you, whether it be your father or a strong male influence in your life. And he actually said, what do you want to be in your career? Do you just want to run it like a lot of country boys? They've sort of head out there and they might have 20, 30 games, whatever, and then you're back, after 4 or 5 years, then you're back into the country and living a normal life? Or do you want to have a long, memorable career? And because unless you commit to being a professional athlete in the truest sense of the word, you're going to have a lot of regrets. And it sort of it struck a chord with me. And I thought, no, he's right. And, yeah, you can still have a good time, but you are a professional, and I want to live my dream to the fullest. And I had this unbelievable pre-season home boxing. Like I said, he was a mate of mine, a mentor, and I spent 6 weeks hard training in the gym. And what I thought was the pain barrier was absolutely broken and just taken to another level. And that was a really big learning thing for me. And I came back from that 6 weeks and I turned some heads at Brisbane when it started pre-season, including the coaches, and they were like, shit, what's Browny been doing? Yeah. I'd put on weight. I reckon I was able to increase about 8 kilos, put a lot of muscle on. I was super fit. I was really strong. And I was ready to go. Yep. And that next season, Lee Matthews came up to me, the coach came up to me at the start of the season, and he said, You're my key forward. You're my centre forward, which is one of the positions on the ground that I played. I'm sticking with you. And you know what? I didn't feel a sense of anxiety around that because I knew I was prepared. I would have felt anxious if I was still preparing like I was 6 months earlier, Ant. But because I'd done the work, I thought, no.
Yeah, good to go.
I'm good to go. I'm ready to accept this opportunity. And we always had this sort of, he used to have these signs around the locker room, and I think it said, success is where opportunity and preparation collide. And I'd done the preparation, and
now
my opportunity collided. And It's a funny thing happened that year, Ant. I played every game, and we won a premiership at the end of the year. And I think standing on that premiership, funny old thing, isn't it? 12 months earlier, I was sitting on mum's couch at home, contemplating what I was going to be as a footballer, watching the AFL Grand Final, and 12 months later, I was standing there, holding the cup up with a premiership medallion, living out your dream, and just thinking to myself, shit, imagine if I hadn't put that work in and decided to become a real professional. And obviously that was an everlasting memory for me.
We're going to go back to that memory, but you raised a point there, which I think is so important, especially for young athletes, young males, wanting to progress in life. Mentors are great, especially, like you mentioned, the father figure, and they're great to have as a mentor. But I think having a mentor outside of that realm, outside of the family realm, really just focusing on the trade itself, having a sort of a trade mentor will level you up to a different era, to a different part of your game. Because when you have so much respect, I think, as a youngster for your father, as we mentioned before, but when an outside influence decides to take, that's done out of because they have your best interests at heart. It's not done out of love or unconditional love like your father or family member. Right. It's done out because they actually have your best interests at heart. They see the potential that's within you, and when they build you up in such a way, when they invest their time and their experience into you, that type of mentorship is super important. And this is what I say to anyone going through the ranks or that younger stage of their life coming through. Is seek, external mentorship, seek external advice away from the family, because it will just give you a different string to your bow. And what you just said there just sort of confirms.
I think there's an acceptance too, away from the family unit, or say from the father in this case. You probably accept feedback a little bit because I think it's naturally ingrained in us too. We don't accept feedback that well from our parents, especially our old man. Like I try and teach my kids how to kick the footy, and my oldest daughter, she didn't want to listen to me. So, but she'll listen to Joe Blake down the street.
Yeah, my exact point. It's the same with me when I train my son, and then someone will come up in the gym and go, "You're not doing that correctly," and I'm like, "I've told you 1,000 times." So,
exactly right. But now it's so frustrating. You talk about that. Like I talked to Dad, and Dad was a school teacher for 40-odd years. So he grew up on the dairy farm, but had to go and live his dream to play football. So living in the city, couldn't run a dairy farm while he's playing footy, so he became a phys ed teacher. And I asked him about what the biggest thing is, the difference in, say, troubled kids or, what's the most common denominator? He said, mate, in 42 years, by a comfortable margin, is the strong male influence in one's life, whether that be male or female. He said that is the strongest common denominator. There's that, and then there's daylight to the next biggest influence. So that's a really interesting point that he made, and obviously that shows just how important they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you raised that point, it just hit a nerve, because I thought to myself, you know, I've had family influences, whether male or female, but outside of that, you know, in the military, in the sports arena as well, you know, being classed as an athlete in the special forces, you know, it does level you up, and I think you just have that bit more of an understanding to not answer back, to not, you know, take it for granted, and just and crack on with it.
Respect for authority too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
you did it to the extremes, didn't you? Because in your former life in the military, there's no questions asked, is there? No. Going back the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd know about it. But Browny, you mentioned that moment when you picked up that premiership, you know, that premiership trophy for the first time at such a young age. Before I get onto that, it's probably a personal question, and I think a lot of Aussies will be asking it. From when you grew up and you saw the AFL, you know, and I'm talking hitting it. I remember seeing it when I was a youngster, you know, hair being pulled, shirts being ripped, forearms, you know, going in. Has it changed dramatically? And I'm talking about the physical violence of the sport, you know, from when you saw it growing up as a kid to when you actually played it.
Absolutely. Well, growing up in the country, I was 15 when I started playing senior football against the men, and I still remember this day against a team called Camperdown, and they were full of dairy farmers, and they were scary. So to a 15-year-old, I was shitting myself.
Forearms the size of your thighs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I thought they're just going to eat me here. And there was 3 or 4 blues that day, and I remember thinking, geez, you know, I've got to not be stupid about it, but I've got to stand up for myself, because they'll sense the weakness and they'll come after me. So, no doubts it's changed. At the AFL level, the game is as hard as it's ever been, because they're professional athletes. You know, they're stronger, they're quicker, all those sort of things. But so the contact's always going to be heavy, those incidental contacts, that's part of the game. They've been able to clean the game up, though, from, I suppose, the dangerous tackle situation. The bumps used to be really heavily celebrated in our game. Now they've been taken away. So I guess, like in world sport, especially contact sport, Ant, there's such a concern about concussion. It's on the front pages everywhere now, and people's long-term health, that leagues are having to adjust these historical rules, aren't they? That was seen as the fabric of the game. They're having to change these rules, which is they've had a bit of blowback for, but ultimately it's to protect the players from themselves, and the concussion rules are a lot more stringent than they were. I remember 2003 grand final, Ant, where I was knocked out at the first bounce. I didn't miss a minute of the game, and the doctor shadowed me for about 15 minutes out on the ground, and I played every minute of the game. We had a great win, but I can't remember a hell of a lot of the first half. So imagine if that happened now. The doctor would be deregistered for life. He'd never be able to practice again. But that's the thing you did. And that's what we went out and did, and we wore it as a badge of honour, because your teammates did it, your captains did it, your leaders did it, and you just wanted to follow in their footsteps. But now we are in a safer time. But in terms of the contact and the speed of the game, it's as fast and as brutal as it's ever been, as far as I go. And we don't want those king hits and dirty plays behind the scenes, do we? So I think the game's in pretty good health from a physicality point of view.
Yeah, and it forces you to focus on the game, because I suppose back in the day, and you know, we've all been there, you're focused on the game, but you're focused on the player as well. You're thinking, right, how can I take this guy out, you know, and you're not focused on, but when you focus on the game, of course, you know, that sort of level of athleticism goes up, because you know, you have to be focused on getting the ball and doing what you need to do. So
I remember Nathan Buckley, Bucks, who actually does the podcast with me from time to time, but I works with Bucks on a Monday night on the couch, and he was just a great player for Collingwood. You know, one of the greatest players our game's ever seen, and obviously we had the big rivalry. We beat him in a couple of the grand finals, but you know, it's part of my job sometimes. I'd start outside the centre bounce, and I'd come in off the centre square, and I'd try and pick off the opposition's best midfielder. And this day, I come charged in. Bucks is obviously Collingwood's best player. I thought, I'm going to nail Bucks here. First bounce, Marvel Stadium, 50,000 people. I've come charging in. Bucks has just seen me at the last second. and moved his head out of the way. Well, my elbow was already up, and I've come through and I've cleaned up my captain, Michael Voss, another great player, and I knocked my captain out.
You went straight through.
Straight through him and got me skipper. So I didn't get suspended. Obviously, you can't get suspended for hitting your own player, but I just missed Bucks and hit him. But
there you
probably
go, mate.
fortunate
Focus
enough
on the game, not the player.
Exactly. Focus on the game itself. So it's just a funny one there. And who would have thought now me and Bucks are great mates?
No, it's great, man. That's why I ask it, because, when I grew up as well, it was known, even in the UK, Australian football, as we called it, it was just, you'd see it and you just watch it purely for the dirty tactics.
It was for that. Well, there was the famous game, the Battle of Britain. They used to do a game at the end of the season, and back when Foster's Lager, the beer, and all that was huge with the expats.
They come out at half time with the Fosters in it.
That's right. And they had this famous game after the 1987. I think Carlton beat Hawthorn 1987 grand final. A week later, they played an exhibition match at the Oval in London. And it was known as the Battle of Britain. And you see tapes of that, like players were getting knocked out, they're getting their jaws broken. It was just a brutal, brutal game of football. Not a great advertisement nowadays if you showed that, but back in the day, it was almost that was what was accepted. So you can understand people from the British Isles would have had those visions of what AFL and Australian football is all about. So fortunate enough, they've cleaned the game up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. I'll make you right. And it's like you said, there's the athletes. You are athletes out on that pitch. I went with Ben Cousins to watch my first AFL footy match.
What a great player he was,
and I didn't realise how big that oval was. I didn't realise
amazing,
how many kilometres, 15 to 20 kilometres a match the guys are covering, and it's just like wow. And that's why. You see, you're just ripped, and you're shaped like athletes rather than your big rugby players, which I understood when I got there. I was like, you've got to cover this whole, and Ben's like, yeah, watch this, and it's whoa.
It was amazing. It is amazing how big and how long the game is.
Yeah,
it's our game's getting out towards. I think the game's getting too long. Like we're getting out towards 130, 140 minute games. That's not including the breaks. So, and there's a lot of running goes into it. I was about 105 kilos. I'm not sure if you go into kilos or pounds, but I was 105 kilos and used to run about 16 Ks a game. So you just think, I can't even relate to that anymore. I've completely lost my shoulders. They call me the human Galliano bottle, Ant. So I'm about 98 kilos now. I try and keep the weight off because I still enjoy a run, but I can't even imagine being that weight now and still being able to cover those distances and get hit at the same time. But and they have to be an all-round athlete to play AFL. You have to be so talented or certainly capable in so many athletic areas as well as skill areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Take me back to that moment. How old are you when you so you've done the preparation, you've got your mentor, you come back, like you said, you put on good muscle, you put on a bit of weight, you've got the opportunity now, and at the end of the season you don't miss a game, you pick up the trophy. How old are you at this age?
I'm 19.
9.
Yeah.
What's going through your head? And talking about the head game and what's going through your head as a 19-year-old professional AFL player, the son of an AFL legend. So I suppose there's a lot of pressure there. But what's going through your head when you're lifting that trophy?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because initially you're just going, how good's this party going to be? And I'm going to be the best looking 19-year-old in Australia, and all these sort of things flood to your mind because we're young. We're young and we're dumb and we're, and so you party and you celebrate. But we're fortunate enough, our team, and this is part of our success, and this has helped me in life to always, enjoy the moment, enjoy the success, but then move forward to the next challenge. Lee Matthews, our great coach who, a lot of people obviously aware of Lee Matthews' work, and, he was voted the greatest player of the 20th century, 4-time premiership player as a coach. Four-time premiership player and also now a 4-time premiership winning coach. He grabbed us on the Wednesday after the grand final because we had our exit meetings, and we were sort of thinking, we'd be sitting there drinking beers and still celebrating, and it was a pretty brutal meeting. Like, he was straight to the point. And he spoke about next season, what do we need to do over the off-season? what do we need to do next season? And he said also too, just a little reminder, every team is now on zero. He said, we're 4 days after the grand final. You've won the premiership. He said that counts for nothing now because now, at that time, there were 16 teams. He said 15 teams are now hunting us. And he said, you can be the hunted, or you can continue to be the hunter. And he said, those other teams, they don't give a fuck that you just won the premiership. The score and the ladder is back to zero.
Yeah.
And that is a reminder that we need to come back and be better over the pre-season and obviously start again. And he always had this pyramid, and he used to keep it very simple. To win those, to make finals back in those days, you needed 12 wins. To make top 4, you needed 16. He used to work on that pyramid, but he said the first step of the pyramid is personal bests in the pre-season. And mark my words, he said the first day of pre-season, if you turn up out of shape, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. And that was a little reminder and a lesson. Okay, righto, shit, no, he's right. We need to move forward. And initially it was a shock, but we learned it as a very valuable lesson. And I think that's why we were able to win 3 premierships in a row, almost won a 4th in a row, and we were able to just keep pushing forward as a team and as individuals. And so, yeah, he quickly knocked that out of me, Ant, when I thought I was going on a 6-month tour of Australia with the Premiership Cup celebrating. It lasted about 4 days. Quickly pulled the cup back down. And you know what? I'm glad he did, because now we get to gloat and we get to look back and say we didn't just win a premiership, we won multiple premierships.
Yeah, no, I love that sort of level playing field scenario, because it grounds you, it humbles you, it gets you back into that headspace of, right, listen, we are now, we are being hunted, but we're the hunter, and it's.
And you have to have that mentality, don't you, as a competitor?
Yeah, absolutely, you do, 1,000,000%.
And I think it keeps you in the. I found for me, and I'm sure you'd be very good at this. It helped keep you in the moment. Obviously keep you moving forward, but just keep you in the moment. And that's why I used to love him, not talking about... He used to remind us what we're there for often. Sable he was screaming at us at training, and the boys would have a bit of a whinge or a moan. He goes, if you can't handle me screaming at you, how are you going to handle 100,000 Collingwood supporters screaming at you 2:30 on grand final day? Because that's when our game starts on grand final day. He'd often remind us, if I treat you like he wouldn't put curfews in place, on the weekends for the boys to go out and have a beer. He didn't believe in that, because he said, if I treat you like boys during the week, how are you going to be a man on grand final day? 2:30 on grand final day. He'd often just drop those things in. So little reminders always as to what you were playing this game for. But then he used to just keep it sort of small goals. Never get too far ahead of yourself. And I used to love that. And I think it helped me as a competitor and athlete just to live in the moment. And I think just in my daily life.
Browny, you were a hard player to go up against, and looking at some of your footage, I wouldn't say reckless tackles, but you used to go in as if your life depended on things. How and I know the majority of your career you managed to stay injury free. Was there a procedure in place that kept you injury free? Because during your younger days, God, mate, you used to go in hard.
It was a funny one, because I thought at times you get accused of being reckless, but the position I played, I grew up and the position required it. Wayne Carey was a hero of mine. Dermot Brereton was a hero of mine, and they were just hard, tough, courageous players, and they played the position in the right manner. They won premierships, so I idolised those guys. So I thought that's the way the position needs to be played. I wasn't the greatest athlete. I certainly wasn't the quickest. So I knew that I had to be able to outcompete my opponent and outwork my opponent. So I never wanted to have an opponent that could outwork me, whether that be physically or between the ears.
And did you need to switch up your training for that? Or was there a certain way that you trained that was different to the others, especially in that position? You just have to, you have to be hardened as well as an athlete, right?
Yeah, and I suppose I had to get the size on. So when I came, I was about 86, 88 kilos, and like I said, I got up to about 105 kilos within 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So I worked really hard. I remember the weights coach, Scotty Murphy's still in the system. He's at Geelong. And back in those days, we wanted big, strong teams. So I had to put the weight on because I had the spaghetti arms and the no shoulders at that stage. So he used to send me home from gym. I had to come in and do extra gym sessions and send me home every day. Goes, right, stop near the convenience store and get a large chicken and a loaf of bread. And so I'd go home and I'd eat this bloody half a chicken or a full chicken, depending on how hungry I was, and half a loaf of bread every day. And very quickly I got up to 105 kilos then. So, so physically that's what I had to do. And then I had to work really hard on my power. But I think the resilience, the fitness levels and the resilience between the years, and I think that was a big part of when I went home and trained with my mate in the gym every off season for that 4 to 6 weeks, and we did some brutal sessions, things where you think, geez, I'm not sure I'm going to survive this, and you get through it, and it just makes you stronger.
You feel, you feel like you're going to pass out. Yeah,
you do, but you come out the other side, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
And all of a sudden, just by going to those grey areas, you've improved. And then if you come back the next day, you've improved a little bit. And then I'd do this little thing. I'd always train. I'd get up Christmas morning and train at 6 a.m. And New Year's Day, no matter how many beers I'd had with the boys, I'd go home, the country lads, so they'd always want to be on the beers and catch up. And New Year's Day, I'd get up at 6 o'clock and train, and we would do a brutal session. And no matter how late I'd been out, I'd always did that because I sort of had these things, it's a silly thing in my mind. I want to do these 2 or 3 things and these killer sessions. So when I looked at my opponent, every time I played him, I wanted to look into his eyes and just know that I know you wouldn't have got out of bed and done that. Yeah. I know you wouldn't have done that session.
Psychological advantages that you're giving yourself, yep.
Exactly right. So I guess I tried to use that as a strength. And I think it helped me. It really did help me, whether that at the end of the day it's a placebo effect or not. I believed in it.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, isn't it, Anne? It's the belief.
Yeah, it's the same with me. When I went into combat, I always believed, no matter what, no matter how harsh the target was, no matter how high the high-value target was on the network that we were going to get, I always believed, every time I stepped my foot on the battlefield, I always believed I was going to be on that helicopter home, that I'd never get shot, that I'd never get injured. And people say to me, well, Ant, that's just a placebo. And I'm like, no. I believed that in my head. I believed that I was better than everyone else, that I moved differently, that I'd move through the target in a methodical and a way that they couldn't see me. They wouldn't, I'd always have the drop on them. But in my head, that positive seed of, I know that I'm always going to be on that helicopter home. Never did I allow that seed of doubt to enter my head of what if I got shot? What if I, got injured on time? And I do believe to this day that kept me alive and kept me coming home.
Do you think there was a moment where it clicked? It clicked for you in your training? Because I think that first pre-season I spoke about, where I went over to my mate's gym. I think we had to do a session and I might have to do 50 up downs. We used to have this thing like how many up downs you could do or burpees. And it was part of this boxing session. And I got through it, and the thought of doing these 50 odd burpees in a row at the end of a session or in the middle of this brutal session, I didn't think I was able to do it, but I survived it and got through it. And I thought, geez, you know what? I can survive that. I can survive anything.
Do you know what there was during my selection process when I was in the Royal Marines doing selection, the 6-month process to become a special forces operator? I remember the first 4 weeks was the hill phase where you got extreme weight on your back, covering extreme distance, having to navigate time sensitive tasks. And then when you pass that gets rid of like 70% of the course. Then you go into the jungle. The jungle's 6 weeks. And I can remember the guy that absolutely smashed the hill phase. The first 4 weeks, he was just like a beast. I was scraping through with minutes, and But I can remember in the jungle and I thrived, and I loved the jungle. I loved the soldiering bit of it. And I can just remember him, we had to go up to the jungle house every morning, and it was like a kilometre long. You'd be covered in mud, you'd be woken up in the night. And I can just remember we were all going up, and he was walking down. And I can remember thinking, I said to him, "What's up, you?" And I'm done. It's too much for me. And you
had no sign of it.
Yeah, no, but it just the jungle just does weird things to you, and it's in that moment that I thought, I belong here. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, because I'm still loving it. And I've had, this guy that everyone, was like, oh, he's going to smash selection, even though we had a long way to go. just seeing him walking down, even though I was upset for him, I just thought to myself, wow, if someone like him is going down and I'm going up with, not only going up, but I'm going up with a smile on my face.
Yeah,
Right? I'm like,
yeah,
I'm fucking
yeah.
loving it. You know, I'm covered in mud. I've been up all night. I've done, break contact drills. That was a moment I thought to
I
myself, do
think
you know
you're right,
what?
that smile, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the smile. And, you know,
Yeah, I reckon I had the smile by the end of that session.
Yeah,
Because I think
exactly.
you grow belief from
Yeah,
that moment, don't you?
absolutely you do, 100%. And that was a moment for me that really sealed it. And I thought, you know, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And you know, this is the career for me, moving forward and getting to the top of my military career. But anyway, this is about you, mate. And
Love that story.
going back to your career, would you say that you were obsessed with your trade? Were you, you know, to the point where of course we like to, you know, we need our fun, we need our downtime, we need to recover. But were you obsessed with
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%, yeah. And you had to keep that in check, you know, because there is a balance to it.
Yeah, I agree.
If not mentally wearing yourself out completely, because you probably only got so many the mental cookies in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to keep that energy for the right times. And my wife had often, my wife Kylie, who I've had 3 beautiful kids with, she would often remind me of that, you know, like it's, you know, she might say, you know, you need to have a beer tonight, or you need to have a relax, or whatever it may be, because you just get so invested in it. And it almost, she used to say to me, you're becoming a robot. You're becoming a robot. And I think that used to bleed into my game. You know, if you become too much of a robot in your Monday to Friday, it'd sort of bleed into the game, and you had this stilted look about you, so, and a lack of enjoyment. So she was always one to sort of just remind me about that. And I think I got better as my career went, at just keeping that balance. And because at the end of the day, we're playing footy for a living, Ant. When you play your best football is when you were that 8, 10-year-old kid in the backyard, playing footy, taking on your brothers, taking on your old man. It was the enjoyment of the game. That's when you're at your best and at your purest.
And when you were at the Brisbane Lions, you were offered multiple contracts to go elsewhere. What kept you there, mate? What was the, you know, and I know that you were offered a lot of money. What kept you with the
Well,
Brisbane
I suppose it's the history of the Lions, with Dad playing the Lions and representing the same jumper and having that premiership success. Obviously, you build up the relationships, not only with the players, but all the staff that look after you. And I married a Queensland girl, so that certainly keeps you a bit closer to home. We still live in Queensland.
Pesky women.
That's right. Yeah, they just drag you back. So it was, you know, and then I was the captain of the club when I really got close to going to Collingwood, back in about 2007, 2008, I think it was. I was the captain of the club, and Kyle and myself were about to get married and start a family, you know, so it would have been a big thing to leave. But as the skipper of the club too, like that would have been a big thing to leave the club when you are the leader of the club. So ultimately I decided to stay, and certainly no regrets about that. And unfortunately it didn't quite work out as well from a team success point of view those last few years, and it was a challenge. Collingwood went on to win a premiership, so maybe I made the wrong choice. Those Collingwood supporters often remind me about that, but
I bet they do, mate. I bet they do.
That's right, but you know that's life, and no regrets when you look back in your footy career.
And when you played, was there a sense of responsibility? Did you always have sort of your dad on your shoulder to help you, you know, stay grounded, to help, you know, because if you let yourself down, you would have let him down. Do you think that your father being on your shoulder was a great sort of leveler to your success?
Yeah, I think you're representing your family. Is a huge thing.
Yeah,
Certainly
that's it,
was for me.
and
wanted to make them feel proud for obviously the hard work that they put in. Like Mum was a mate, Dad was still involved in footy, so Mum was the taxi driver. And growing up in the country, especially playing representing footy, you do a lot of miles. And we used to have to go 2 hours to training on a Thursday night to Geelong, and then for the games it could be anywhere between 2 to 4 hours for the games. And Mum was often the taxi driver for that. So we had plenty of long conversations. She used to give me the shits when she'd see this good antique store. She loved her antiques, so she'd stop at an antique store, and then I'd be running late for the footy, some country town somewhere. And you know, so you wanted to make especially your parents proud, but all your family proud, and obviously your teammates and the people involved at the footy club at the time. And so, yeah, I think for me, that was really a strong driver for me, no question about that.
Yeah, and to finish up, mate, you played 256 games and scored 594 goals. Mate, that average, that is phenomenal. Do you have a favourite goal that you could? Is there one that sticks? I know there's there's so many of them, right? But is there
goals
one
in grand finals? You remember those ones?
You know, one where you were just like, yes, this is it, or do they all just merge together, mate?
A couple of I kicked a couple of goals. One to tie the game and one to win a game on or after the siren. So they're the ones where you feel probably the most amount of pressure because you think, shit, if I miss this, your teammates are not going to want to talk to me again. So that happened twice, once against West Coast Eagles, once against Sydney, I think it was. But the grand final ones are always memorable, and probably the most important kick I had in my career that I kicked. Because you miss plenty, but you got to put your head on the chopping block. I learned a very valuable lesson about goal kicking when I was young and taking opportunities or embracing the opportunities, running towards the fire. First year, late in the game, we were behind, and I thought, shit, if I get the ball and I have to kick for goal late in the game and I miss, imagine what everyone's going to think of me. So I almost ran away from the football, or certainly didn't want to put myself in the situation enough. And guess what? The ball found me, unbelievably, even though I wasn't trying to find the ball out. And I had this shot, and I missed a critical shot late in the game. We lost the game. And from that point on, that was a valuable lesson. I was running away from the fire, and the fire got me. And from that point on, my mentality with goal kicking, especially in those late game scenarios or late quarter scenarios, I ran towards the fire. And I think that put me in a lot better mental
mindset.
I suppose, mindset. It put me in a lot better mindset to be more successful with my goal kicking routine, and I became a pretty good goal kicker in those pressure moments. So late in the third quarter against Collingwood, we were losing touch with them a little bit. We were the massive favourites. Collingwood were huge underdogs, but they were getting over the top of us. I had to help turn the game for our team. We got a shot late in the game, about 40-odd out from a pretty tight angle, and Vossi, our great Premiership captain, came over to me, now Carlton coach, came over and said, big fella, we bloody need this. And when a man with that much conviction stares you in the eyes and said, we need this, I thought, I've got no choice, have I, Ant? I've got to whack this straight through the middle. And I reckon it was the most purest kick I ever hit. As soon as that ball hit my boot and left the boot, it was going nowhere but the middle of the goals. And so that was a great memory that you were able to, I guess, survive the pressure and help your teammates. And we went on to win that close grand final by a close margin, but that helped give us the impetus to get us over the line that day.
I love that, mate. You're in it anyway, so run towards the fire. You know, it's a great lesson. And the final question for you, mate. How hard is it now that you're in the media world? How hard is it to stay out of trouble, and how hard is it not to bring your footy locker room antics to the media space where the limelight is on you, and sometimes you have to go, whoa.
I know Mum would always say, when dear old Mum, God bless her soul, who passed away a couple of years ago, Mum, she'd always ring me and go, JB, she called me JB, when you go on TV tonight, don't swear. Don't swear.
I get that all the time as well, mate.
So I often remind myself, especially on live TV, which I'm on tonight, don't swear. Don't swear. Don't swear as the camera's about to roll. So it's been very fortunate. I've had, as you would know, Ant, the media's a great industry. Fortunate enough, it's a privilege to still be involved for over 10 years now since I retired, and still I get paid to go and watch games of football and call games of football and watch great athletes in action and discuss it and break it down, and gives me a great balance with my family. I know you've got your family with you currently, and often I bring the kids down to Melbourne with me. I've got my daughter. She took me to Beetlejuice, the musical, the other night, so that was a little bit different. A Carlton Collingwood, exactly right. That was so just great memories, and I've really enjoyed my time in the media post football, Ant.
Browny, listen, thank you for coming on my podcast, Head Game, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Time has flown. Had a ball, mate. Thank you so much.
I've had a ball too, and I love your shows too. And listen, I've had your audio book as well, mate. That was fantastic. You're writing plenty of books. You're an author in your own right. I'm an author as well, mate. But I wrote the forward. I think that was about enough for me. So I had to have some help after that.
Listen, mate, I'm going to get it now. I'm going to get it. But
Good on
listen,
you. Thanks,
thanks, mate. And hopefully we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks.